Hello and welcome to Cal EMA Live. My name is Brad Alexander and I'm with the California Emergency Management Agency, and I have my co-host here.
My name is Deborah Hoffman. I'm with the California Environmental Protection Agency, or Cal EPA, and today we're going to be talking about California's emergency warning system and how it's so important to get information in a crisis to all of California's 58 counties. We'll also be talking about mutual aid and strike teams, what those are and why they are important to the public.
And just remember, folks, that you can tweet us at Cal EMA or watch us on Ustream at Cal EMA Live. And I'll show you our guests today. We got John Wagner. If you want to introduce yourself, John.
Hi, John Wagner, Assistant Chief with Metro Fire in Sacramento. I'm the training chief currently.
And Mark?
Mark D'Ambrogi, City of Auburn Fire Chief and also the Cal EMA Fire and Rescue Region 4 Coordinator.
And Chief Seguiris.
Hi, Kim Seguiris. I'm the State Fire and Rescue Chief for Cal EMA.
And Chief, if you could give us maybe an update. Yesterday was the first day of officially summer, and we've had a couple of the hottest days in California. How is fire season going so far this year?
Well, if you look at the statistics that CAL FIRE has already provided us, we're already way ahead of normal. We're about 1,000 fires ahead of what we normally would be this time of the year. We've had low amount of snow in the high country. We did get quite a bit of rain in late spring, but it's not enough to take care of what we need. Some of the reservoirs are not going to be at peak. Vegetation's already turning, and we're already seeing that increase in fire activity. Some of those fires are already very hot. We're seeing spotting conditions in some areas. I think in our high country, it's going to be worse than it is in some of the valleys before it's all said and done. I think we're definitely seeing an increase in temperatures so far this year, as we've experienced just here in the Sacramento area. I was in Southern California earlier this week, and it was cooler there than it was here in the valley.
And do we need to be watching Southern California more for these wildfires that have been happening so far?
You need to watch the whole state. We're already experiencing it. You know, Southern California is definitely probably a month or better way ahead of schedule, and we're already seeing some of that fire activity here in the valley and as far north as we go. When you go further east as you go, it's even worse over there. And, you know, when you look on the east side of the Sierras, they've been dry all winter.
Chief, we haven't seen any of those huge fires that we've seen in past years so far this year, but that really can change in an instant.
Yeah, California's actually been lucky the last two summers. We've had fairly light years. Don't know that we'll see a third one this year, but if you look at just what's going on in, you know, east of us in places like Texas and Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, I mean, they're already experiencing, you know, due to drought and bug-killed conditions there. California is usually not much behind that. When you look at the national index and you look at our drought conditions, we're already experiencing it all the way from the south, and it's making its way up to the north. In fact, some of the pictures that we generally get from the National Weather Service and some of our other partners, actually you can actually see a swath coming from our friends out in Nevada coming down the Highway 5080 corridor in some of this area. And it's like I said, it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get drier and it's going to get hotter. And as the summer continues to carry on, the fires only increase with intensity. You know, most of the fires in California are started, you know, by individuals, either due to accident or due to negligence or on purpose. But we're going to continue to see the increase of those fires. What's going to be tough for us this year is really going to be our ability to go out and do the initial attack. You know, some agencies are experiencing, due to their budgets, experiencing less resources. Either they've browned out or actually entirely closed stations, they've laid off employees or not filled in behind folks. So we're going to see somewhat of a delay as new fires pick up. We do pretty good in the first couple fires that happen, but as we start getting into multiple starts, our ability to go after the new ones start becoming increasingly hard.
So let's talk about some of the tools that the state uses, and I know you folks here have all kind of have different areas of expertise when it comes to some of those tools the state uses in the event of, you know, a large fire that's, you know, involving multiple counties. So first let's start with kind of the statewide look at.
California is real lucky in one sense. We probably have one of the best mutual aid systems in the entire world. People look to California as a leader in that side of the house. So
let me just interrupt you for a second for the folks out there that don't know, what is mutual aid?
Mutual aid is the ability for our fire agencies at the local, state, and federal level to move resources and assist one another. Fires know no boundary, and sometimes, in most cases, we send the closest available resources to an incident, regardless of jurisdiction, to make sure we get somebody on the scene as quickly as possible. So we use that mutual aid not only locally, but we use it within the counties, we use it within the region, and statewide.
And Mark, you are kind of a coordinator for mutual aid. You know, how do we communicate within those counties, and how do you know, oh, they need us over there, or we need to go over here?
That's part of the coordinator's roles. I'm kind of the link between the State Fire and Rescue System and Chief Segarra's office, and then our local governments, the folks that are in the stations. So my role is kind to assess the capabilities out there based on the activity, see what incidents are occurring at the local level, and transfer that information up to the upper level. And then vice versa, when the state gets very active and there are large incidents or multiple incidents and resources are needed throughout the state, then that information comes back down to me, and then I communicate with the local agencies, and then we start looking for those available resources that can fulfill our mutual aid system. So just like the title says, coordination, that's what we're doing, is coordinating. And like I say, I'm that middle link between what's going on at the state level and what's going on at the ground in the local fire stations.
And I understand some of those resources include strike teams. John, if you could talk a bit about what strike teams do and how are those activated, how are they different from a local tool that firefighters and communities can use?
Yes, and that's why we're sitting this way, because it came right down into local government response, is we all work together, not just in this season, but we work all risk all the time in our mutual aid agreements. Local government, what we have to offer is our number one responsibility is for our own turf, if you will. In the Sacramento region, we have our own government makeups and smaller jurisdictions, but work seamlessly in this area. What we're prepared to do in the strike team component, and some people have asked about strike teams and what they are, that's when we send out 5 like resources. Could be a variety of any type of resources. The most common that you'll see is fire engines that go out, 5 fire engines. They have common capability with a leader, a strike team leader, which is typically an officer that's in charge of those men and women that go out on those pieces of apparatus. We're ready to do that at the local level with our own engines and resources, as well as apparatus that are provided by the state for that very action. And when those are called into responsibility, or when we need to respond with them, we send them out as our personnel provide the manpower for that, for the state responsibility anywhere in the state, whether that's initial attack, the immediate need response, or some planned need for later on down in the incident.
We have questions from the public that we've had sent into our questions email account, which is questions@calema.ca.gov. And Sam from Sacramento would like to know how you trigger a strike team to respond to a particular fire.
That's weird. Is that Sam, my brother?
Probably not.
Probably not. With that and how that's triggered, that comes in, depends on where it's at, and not to get too far down into details, but there's different responsibilities. So our local responsibility areas, there's different geographical responsibilities in the state. There's local, there's state, and there's federal. Depending upon where that fire is, they call for the resources that they need, because as the chief stated earlier, fire knows no boundaries. So it's based off the potential of the incident. They call the resources that they need, and then it will, as an example, if it's called here in Sacramento, we call through our own dispatch center. Our dispatch center then in turn calls the chief here in Region 4 in Grass Valley. Grass Valley gets on the horn and then starts talking up the level, and then gets that dispatch going.
John, I know you were down in San Diego during some of the fires down there, and I used to work as a reporter, and I was down there too, and it's always interesting to me to be somewhere so far away like San Diego, and then to run into, you know, you from Auburn, or you know, Nico King from Sacramento Fire. And how is it that, you know, you're at home? Does the phone ring? Does your, you know, are you at the station? How is it that you physically get down to San Diego, and how is that kind of coordinated?
How we prep our own local government and our own firefighters in the stations is we'll have typically that strike team leader is designated every morning when we come on shift. We have an operational area coordinator that gets that information on who's ready and who's capable to respond, so it bumps up the chain so that we're preset for engine 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are ready to go with this strike team leader. And then when the dispatch comes in, we're set and prepped to go. So they're preparing everything. They have the engine ready for response. Their bags are packed. They know that they even need to make calls home ahead of time that it's summertime and we're ready to go.
How quick is that turnaround? You know, between when you guys get the call and when you're out the door heading south on the 5?
It could be 1 minute all the way up to a maximum of 1 hour, depending upon how the dispatch comes in. As I had stated earlier, there's initial attack, which we're prepped for in the local region. We can just call dispatch, ask for the closest units in strike team configuration through our county OES, and we'll get punched out. There's a 60-mile radius of initial attack that we'll do in the Sacramento region or area.
And I understand we have a couple of images that you may be able to walk us through from a fairly recent response that a strike team went to. Is that what these images are from?
Sure, there's some pictures that were up.
Oh, do we not have it? Looks like it's not working for us.
There was that, the next level is that immediate need dispatch. And that immediate need dispatch, we have a California fire agreement, and that just states that we have to be out of our stations within a half hour for that immediate need. And that would be something that's out of our region but relatively close. And then plan needs for the next operational period.
I see. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at, this is just a picture of a fire that occurred. It was a day fire. It was down in the Los Padres National Forest a few years back. And these are just showing you images of crews that are facilitating a lookout position in which we always engage in for our risk management.
That last picture, I mean, looking at that wall of fire kind of ahead of you, what's going through your mind when you're looking at that? And, you know, is there any fear that ever comes into your mind, or are you just responding?
I don't think that anybody would be able to tell you that there's not fear involved in what we do. If you're not paying attention. But we're all prepped, and what we train for is so that we have good situational awareness. So everybody that you may have seen in that particular photo is supposed to, for lack of a better term, have your head on a swivel, know what's going on with your situational awareness, and setting a plan, engaging that plan based off of that situation that you have. So depending upon that wall of fire or that flame that's going on,
and part of that is training to a level of confidence within the chain of command from the local level up to the state level, and having a coordinator in between that is able to bring resources that you can rely on to respond to these types of incidents.
Exactly, and I'll bring it back to the chief from even a national level. Courses and training that take place that actually get engaged and put into place for putting subject matter experts together. As an example, in the 1996 Calabasas Incident Report, a Blue Ribbon Commission was put together for our state on incidents that had occurred prior to that, so that we could tool up and enhance our training throughout the state. And that was brought on by chiefs such as Chief Zagaris. And it's really, I got to tell you, from a local level, I've been engaged in our own department just down here. I started with CAL FIRE when I was a kid, and 29 years here, we have effectively become a lot better at our training, our response, and what we do professionally, and that has to do with this whole statewide response.
And Mark, have there been any significant changes you've seen in your recent career that have made the chain of command more efficient, or responding to either a local fire or a state incident?
Well, one of the things that's definite is that mutual aid is practiced and exercised every day at the lowest local level. Like Chief Zagaris stated, we're experiencing challenges in the way we operate. So what we've developed many years ago in our mutual aid, we're actually using that on a day-to-day basis. That's how we function in the fire service. So that's, in my opinion, why it is so effective in the statewide system, because we do exercise it every day. Kind of piggybacking on what John said as far as the training, that's another component of the system, the mutual aid system, is that we have standardized training. We have expectations of meeting those people that we send out to any incident, regardless if it's Humboldt County or San Diego County. When you get a fire crew or a strike team, they are trained at a level that can perform. So, you know, back to the pictures, when you see people performing, they're doing a job that they're assigned to do, they know what they're doing, and they're engaged in it. So that's what I've seen our fire service really step up to the plate.
And then who is actually or where is that coordination happening as far as, okay, this team from El Dorado County is going to be, in this neighborhood, and we've got this crew from, Auburn over in this neighborhood. Who's in charge of kind of assigning those crews, and where does all that coordination happen?
It actually, once again, starts out at that local level. It could be a local agency in charge, could be our CAL FIRE as an agency, or maybe one of our federal partners. Somebody is on jurisdictional authority. In some cases, fires get large enough that we go under unified command, multiple agencies. They start out with ordering resources, and they use what's there locally. When those resources are drawdown or there's nothing else available, they go, to the op area. Op area goes to the region. When it hits the op area moves everything in the county. When they go to when they need additional resources, they go to the region at Mark's level. And in this case, Mark's got 12 counties, and including the Tile Basin, and he moves resources. And it all depends on which one of those regions, but Mark can generally put on the ground somewhere around 20 to 25 strike teams of engines on any given day. And those they try to move the closest available, unless it's a plan need. If it's a plan need, then we try not to move the close available. Then we try to move them from, so we don't have as many holes. We try to do it in a more coordinated method. And at the state level, when the region needs resources, we have 5 other regions to go to. And that's the job up at our office. We move those resources statewide. And at some point, and we regularly run into this on some of our busy years, but we run out of resources in the state of California. And when we need additional resources, we go to our neighboring partners and use our interstate compacts. We also use a program called EMAC, Emergency Managed Assistance Compact, where we, during 2008, brought resources from Florida, New York, all over the country into the state. And in some cases, we also work with our federal counterparts and bring resources in internationally to assist us as well.
And conversely, if there's something big going on in Colorado or Arizona, our guys here from California or guys and gals, I should say, sorry, are on their way to that state to help out.
In this business, we believe it's better to give than to receive mutual aid. So as much as we do receive mutual aid from around this other parts of the country, we'd rather go visit them than host it here.
Sure. and that coordination, when you say up in our office, that's actually right here where we're broadcasting from, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in the second half of the show, right? But that's actually happening right in the room, kind of behind.
Right up here in the second floor, just above us. In fact, CAL FIRE and Cal EMA have a joint command center up there, in which we do a lot of coordination on a day-to-day basis for the citizens of this great state.
And I understand that we have some footage of a strike team in action. Are we able to go to that footage? Okay. So we should be seeing a strike team activated in San Diego, running a line up a hill. Or actually, it's in Butte County. Is that right? And
they're nodding behind us.
They're nodding. If you can speak, it's okay.
And when we come back from that video, we're going to switch things out a little bit. We're going to kick you guys off the set. We're going to bring in three more guests, and we're going to talk about the emergency warning system. We're also going to take some more questions from the public. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to take one more question, then we'll go to the video.
Okay.
So we have a question from Daniel. And what would you say has been the biggest, latest, and greatest innovation in fighting a wildfire?
Technology-wise, I think currently we're working with a lot of our mapping capability, utilizing funds from Department of Homeland Security, working with CAL FIRE and a lot of our local cooperators, especially in the south part of the states moving north, the next generation for incident command, in which we can actually have folks on the ground have situational awareness by automatic vehicle locators, where resources are, who's responding. Actually have folks start sketching where the fire is, where we need resources to go. For the folks that are managing the incident can only see it, but down the road, the folks on the engines will actually have situational awareness as well to see who else is out there.
Kind of the second part of Daniel's question, he mentioned something about the air tanker planes and wonders if we'll ever be using drones like the military.
Believe this or not, we currently actually work with Department of Defense as well as NASA in utilizing their drones currently. We've been using them pretty heavily. We started making requests in 2003, in 2007, and 2008. We've got a great deal more capability going into 2009. California National Guard actually has drone capability now.
For fire drops or for, kind of scouting and
for
mapping?
us, for intelligence and mapping.
Okay.
Will it get to water dropping capability? I'm sure it will at some point. We're also lucky in California that CAL FIRE also probably has one of the best air fire programs anywhere in the world. And our federal counterparts are struggling currently due to funding and some other issues. The state has a very solid program, and we rely upon it not only for the state's capability, but assist the locals and our federal partners. We've come a long ways. We've got a long ways to go, but the last couple of years, the California National Guard, working with U.S. Forest Service, upgraded our modular air mobile firefighting systems from an old, probably 30-year-old program to more modern capability. We used to have about 70 people to support those with the airdrops. Today we don't need that. Today the C-130s that they're running with these, what we call the MAFS-2s, can actually fly to the current air tanker bases and actually fill up like a regular air tanker can. The telemetry for the air tankers when they drop is all programmed in, how much coverage you need and how you want that retardant to come out. Depending on the type of fuel that you're in or the type of fire behavior you're having. We've come a long ways already, and we're going to continue to go further. And California is a leader in a lot of what goes on nationally.
Well, before we get rid of you guys, I just want to say that I've been on the fire lines many times. Like I said, as a reporter, never obviously as a firefighter, and I'm always impressed with the coordination, the sophistication of the communication, and I always feel like you guys, even in the worst situations, the men and women out there just really seem to have a handle on exactly where to go, what should happen, what's going to be going on with weather, and how that's going to be impacting. And
it's a good point. The question that was asked by Daniel had to do with what's high tech. We're still a boots on the ground, very hands-on process to make fires go away. At the same time, you've got dozers that are still used, but nowadays you have totally enclosed cabs where you can get in there a little further, a little seated without that human dynamic. You also have FLIRs or infrared systems that you can have, as an example, on the La Brea fire in '09 that I was a division on. You bring in, and we're flown in with 3 hotshot crews. We can get that helicopter in there, show us where the hot spots are instead of taking that human element and putting it out there we don't need to be unless we find out where that is.
What's a hotshot crew?
A hotshot crew is a Forest Service crew that's made up of about 20 to 22 personnel that are very physically inclined to be mountain goats basically and cut hand line down in mineral soil and stop the fire in its tracks for removing the fuel.
Are these the guys that are literally, are they dropped into the fire, or?
Yeah, the places that we were in the on the Los Padres National, I call it the Los Padres National Brush Forest, in the area we were at. It's very steep, it's very rugged terrain, and you can't get fire engines into that location, so you'll have to ship people in. But that module of that high-tech stuff is nice to have. At the same time, we have to remember that fire behavior never changes. Fire behavior will always remain a constant. We always have to keep our head on a swivel and understand it and know when things get into alignment based off of, you asked earlier on how the fuels are drying out. Well, there's fuel, weather, and topography. Topography, obviously, we can't change. We have to watch out for that total alignment of wind and the other weather elements that go along with what the fuels are currently. And when those things start to come into alignment, that's when the chief has to put us up to a DEFCON mode, and everybody gets ready to react and move throughout the state at a moment's notice.
Do we have different levels? Like it's today at level 2 in the state and a level.
For wildland, we actually do in California right now. We're at what we call preparedness level 2. Starts at 1, nothing's going on, and goes all the way up to level 5, which would be the worst you could be at. Nationally, currently, because of fire activity in the western United States, we're at a preparedness level 3, moving resources in the west and other places to assist places like Colorado and New Mexico and Wyoming currently right now. In California, we utilize the preparedness levels, and as activity goes up, then we change that accordingly to put us in a more heightened awareness response mode.
Thank you so much. You guys, we're gonna take a look at that video in a second. Thank you so much for joining us today. A lot of great information, and if folks have more questions, they can certainly email.
Yeah, email us at questions@caliema.ca.gov. That's questions@caliema.ca.gov. Or you can tweet us a question at CaliEMA on Twitter. And if we're ready for the video, we will take it. Again, thank you, John, Mark, and Chief Zagaris for coming on the show.
Okay, what the crews are doing right now is what we call progressive hose lay operations. We've got about a 30-acre spot outside the line. There are no other resources, so we're utilizing our Type 3 crews as both doing progressive hose lay and scratching a line in. Progressive hose lays operations, in other words, we're going to lay this hose 4,000 to 5,000 feet long tonight, to where we have every 100 to 200 feet. We'll be having a split or a T off that hose line to do mop up with a smaller hose line. And the reason it's progressive is we progressively move all the way around the fire.
I'll be right there.
We're doing flanking action on both sides. This is the left flank, okay, and then we have the top side of the fire, which is the right flank at this time. I put 3 crews down here, and I have 2 crews up top. Okay, we made the top of the crest. From the point of origin, or where we started our anchor point at the OES engine, we've climbed 3,050 feet. We're about 4,750 on the elevation, 4,750 feet elevation. And we laid out just under 5,000 feet of hose, and that's one OES engine pumping this whole hose line.
And welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed that video of fire response in Butte County. And again, my name is Brad Alexander with CaliEMA, and my co-host here,
Deborah Hoffman with Cal EPA, and we are talking about mutual aid. We've talked about strike teams, and we're in the middle of fire season right now. Fortunately, we haven't had any major incidents like we've seen in years past, but
now we have some folks that help work with those local assets and state assets on notifications and warnings should we have a fire or a hazardous materials situation, a tsunami like that happened to California last year because of the Japanese earthquake. I want to welcome in our guests, Kathy Hoxie, Roger Hintz, and Randy Schully with the California State Warning Center. Kathy, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I work at the National Weather Service office here in Sacramento, and that's a department of Noaa, and I'm also the state liaison.
And she is a meteorologist?
Yes.
Very important during all kinds of emergencies.
Warning coordination meteorologist, yes.
And Roger?
I'm with Sacramento County Office of Emergency Services.
Okay. And Randy?
And I'm Randy Schully, the manager of the California State Warning Center.
And let's talk about the Warning Center. Tell us, the folks, in simple terms, what is the Warning Center?
The California State Warning Center is a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year operation. We interface with our national partners such as National Weather Service. We interface with our state partners such as Cal EPA. And we also interface with the local government entities such as Roger and Sacramento County.
And Roger, what are some of the things information that you would be feeding to the Warning Center?
We have Randy and I work on a regular basis of sharing information. It's vital to us, as if we're talking about a wildfire, letting CaliEMA Warning Center know that we have a fire occurring, so there's other resources beyond fire resources that we may be needing. So we have a two-way street of information going back and forth, what our current status is. Randy's frequently, or the Warning Center is calling us, letting us know what they're hearing, so we're able to share information back and forth on a regular basis.
And that would feed into at a ground level to the folks in fire departments like we just had in our first segment, right?
Right. And then we're also responsible, we're working with other people like the Air Quality Board, for public health, making sure that we get notifications out for information about what's burning, what carcinogens there, what steps they should take, do we shelter in place, all of those activities that take place and we try to take the load off the fire folks while they're working on fighting the fires. They do a great job at that. We're taking on the other responsibilities to help coordination all of the other activities in coordinating with law for evacuations and working with Red Cross to make sure we have facilities in place ready to go in case we need them.
And Kathy, tell us a little bit about why it's so important that weather and Noaa are involved in this whole process.
Well, I think the common theme is constant coordination of what the weather is, what the current conditions are, whether it's weather related or otherwise. And so we will work with the Warning Center and with Roger at the county and all the counties on what the weather conditions are now, how they're going to be changing. We don't make the decisions on how that affects county operations or state operations. We simply give them the information of what's going on and then allow the decision makers to make the decisions. That's really the heart of what the Weather Service does. I think most of the public think we say the temperature is going to be 98 degrees today, and should I,
put a sweater on?
Sweater on? Should I let my child wear shorts to school today? And that is important. Certainly, the public is one of our huge customers, but it really comes down to helping decision makers make decisions, and that could even be the parent deciding on the sweater.
For instance, in the the tsunami that we had a year ago in March, how were you guys involved, and why was that so important to have that kind of early notification?
The National Weather Service issues the EAS messages, the warning messages to the public, the emergency alert system. Okay. So the public would know that as those annoying tones that interrupt their shows on radio, television, cable.
Can we make that a more pleasant tone, perhaps? It's like a nice chime.
No, because you know when it comes, right? But we're the ones that actually put those messages on and get the initial notification out to the public, also to the decision makers. But then we are also, part of Noaa is the tsunami warning centers. So we're working with our Noaa partners, our Noaa brothers and sisters, really, and figuring out how bad is it going to be, as those waves come across the ocean from Japan, what are we determining is going to be the effect on California? So then we're working with the public, but we're also directly working with, again, both the Warning Center and our county partners to help them understand what we're expecting to have happen, and then they can make what decisions they need to make.
So in the case of the tsunami, kind of walk me through what happened. The earthquake happens in Japan, who starts the process in California? Do we hear from the feds and then boom, we go on alert?
Essentially, it gets a little bit complicated, and there's a myriad of tasks in there.
But in general?
The Warning Center gets both phone calls and email and teletypes from the Alaskan Warning Center, who happens to cover the West Coast. From there, my systems automatically put that information out to what's called the county warning points, and Roger, being with county OES, is also in charge of that warning point. The National Weather Service will put out the emergency alert messages to the public. But what's happening at the same time is the Alaskan Tsunami Center has a conference call that involves all the emergency managers on a state level, all of the weather forecast offices on the West Coast. We have a discussion about probabilities and what may or may not happen. At that same time, we're coordinating a conference call to start with our county emergency managers as soon as that conference call ends, to impart that same information to them. That way, decisions can be made by both the state and the counties who actually put out the direct public warnings of what to do. And maybe Roger can address that part.
When we got the call from the Warning Center, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we still had a number of hours ahead of time But we had to gather all the information we could gather from the Weather Service, from Randy, from Palmer, the Tsunami Center, and look at our threat. Sacramento County is a county that is listed in a tsunami threat. Everybody was quite surprised that we are, but we do have a part of the delta down there, and it does have a rise in the tide down there. So part of our responsibility is getting in touch with local PD down here in the city of Isleton, for example, and our sheriff deputies down there, fire departments, make them aware that there is a threat and they can see a rise. It wouldn't be something in the significant size like what we saw in Santa Cruz or Eureka, but any change in tidal changes could cause problems and issues. So we start preparing that information ahead of time. The other part of what we're working with Randy on is availability of resources in case Randy is looking at the statewide, do they need additional resources, much like the strike teams that fire has, emergency managers, we are also available to be able to go and support our other areas that are going to be heavily impacted in the area. So we start working on that part early on.
So if you weren't following that, we tried to capture some of what this system is like in a video format, and it's going to be essentially a world premiere of this video about the California State Warning Center and the warning system in California. If we're able to take that video here in a few seconds. Again, tweet us on CalEMA if you want to comment on the show, send us the question at CalEMA on Twitter, or send us a question, questions@calema.ca.gov.
News now. Breaking news. A violent earthquake off Japan's northeast coast has rocked the nation.
A tsunami warning is in effect for a large part of that country as well as other nations as well. Waves could top 30 feet or more.
This is the California State Warning Center with a tsunami message for coastal counties. The earthquake in Japan is an 8.8. Tsunami watch now in effect for California.
Just watching an unbelievable disaster befalling Japan right now.
I remember being at home and late that night seeing that there had been a large earthquake in Japan.
The police have evacuated everybody from this seaside town along the beach. The motels are closed, the restaurants are closed, and people have been moved back. Northern California beginning to see some of the tsunami waves hit.
I immediately called the warning center because I knew that they were going to need additional staffing, and I ended up coming in just a few minutes after that phone call and was here through the night and through the next day. The way that I explain the warning center to someone that I've never met before is that we're 911 for 911. So the 911 dispatchers sitting in the warning points in California, when their resources are depleted and they maximize their capabilities, you think, who do they call? Well, we're the 911 for the 911 centers.
The Warning Center is a center staffed 365 days a year, 24/7. We monitor California for any type of natural or man-made disasters.
The Warning Center is mission control in California for emergencies and disasters. It's the first point of contact for any type of activity or emergency activity. And our responsibilities are to ensure that Californians get the proper information, or the counties get the proper information to inform their populace.
The thing is, I mean, every emergency is an emergency, whether it's a small car accident where the person is terrified to, 40-car pileup that, you have multiple fatalities. I mean, those are things that take a lot of coordination with a lot of different emergency functions to keep it from getting worse.
So we have some products that need to just get the information out immediately so people can make quick decisions. Those would be severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings, flash flood warnings. Essentially, we word them as short as possible with a quick message saying you're in danger, you need to make some decisions now. Our partnership with Cal EMA is one of, if not the strongest partnership we have. We see a possible event developing. It could be 5 days out or even 7 days out if it looks significant enough. One of the first partners that we'll usually get in touch with is Cal EMA, both the State Warning Center and the regional directors. And we'll let them know that we're seeing something that hasn't developed yet and we're not completely sure about. However, if it does develop, it could be very significant.
Previously, you would have emergency managers or dispatchers, whoever had their finger on the button. It would be through all of these various silo systems. There was a series of different steps that an operator would have to take just to activate maybe 4 or 5 different devices.
These notifications include critical information for the public, first responders, before, during, and after an emergency. The amount of notifications the Warning Center puts out annually would be upwards of 500,000.
In the Warning Center, you can go from 10 miles an hour to 150 miles an hour in seconds, and you need to be prepared to do it. One of the greatest things about managing the Warning Center is it's a team environment, and the team includes people from the National Weather Service and the counties and my staff and the Cal EMA team. It's just a lot of satisfaction to see all those teams come together in a common effort.
Welcome back, and that was the first time I saw that video. I actually saw it a little bit earlier today before we went on the air, and it was an amazing overview of what happens here at the Warning Center. If you want to see that video again, they have it on the Cal EMA website, calema.ca.gov. And one of the things we've been talking about today, or two of the things we've been talking about today, tsunamis and fires, obviously very important here in California, but another real emergency situation can often be the heat in California. Let's talk a little bit about how this system helps us, you know, in an event of a prolonged heat wave.
In the event of a prolonged heat wave, there's a number of steps that occur. In 2000, for example, during the 2006 heat wave, the National Weather Service actually gave Cal EMA a heads up that would occur. We began coordinating with all of our state agencies such as Public Health, Cal EPA, Department of Aging, and numerous other ones. We would get briefings from the National Weather Service. We would get briefings from the health experts at Public Health. And decisions were made of do cooling shelters need to be open? You know, media started carrying drink plenty of water. Things that would directly affect the population in California. Along with that, the counties are brought into that to start making local decisions. One of the important things that I have to emphasize, Kathy and I are just the beginning of this whole process. Roger's responsibility is actually to get down and physically put out the warnings to the public and what actions they should take. The state recommends what people can do. The county OESs actually interact with their public. And Roger, if you might want to
we start getting a lot of calls. I mean, even just the other day, 100 degrees in Sacramento is kind of normal. But again, people started calling, what do we do? And we depend on both Randy and Kathy to give us that feed of information, what we need to expect. So we start messaging early. We have a heat advisory plan that we work with, and it's our guide to how we're going to respond to the disaster or the event. So we start that early on, and our public affairs people start getting that message out. If it's going to be a prolonged one, we start having conference calls with public health, air quality, and the fire departments, all of that, because they're all going to be impacted by it. The heat emergencies, the fire folks are going to get the medical calls, stuff like that. So we want them ahead of time. We want to be proactive, ready to respond to the incident. But we're also looking at other things beyond just the weather itself. We're looking for information from Randy for the power grids, any threats, because as much as we can manage, you know, there's plenty of places to go to cool down, swimming pools, malls, things like that. We start losing power grids. Now we've got a whole section of a community blacked out with no power, no air conditioners, no fans. So that's really important to us to be able to share that information, and again, coordination with us, but then larger picture of coordination with our emergency players within the operational areas, and getting that message out to the community.
And we just had one of those 100-degree days in Sacramento, I believe on Sunday it was. And,
right.
And generally it's not that, I shouldn't say it's not that big of a deal, but it's when we have these multiple days, and right. I think that's kind of where you come in is, you know, monitoring, and so you guys know, well, we're going to see, you know, 100-degree days for the next 4 or 5 days, which really can exacerbate the crisis.
Yeah, it's actually not that common for us to have multiple days, 5, 6, 7 days in a row of 100 degrees or more. The 2006 event was the all-time record, 11 days in a row, which broke a 9-day record was the previous. So, but we've also found that it's not just the high temperatures, it's the minimum temperatures. The health services folks will tell us that our bodies can handle heat if it has a chance to relax for even just 2 or 3 hours.
Temperatures drop down.
And that's where living in Sacramento, living in Northern California is wonderful compared to the Midwest or the East, where they have the humidity.
No offense to any Midwestern.
No, of course. But it's what was so significant about that event is we broke our all-time record high minimum temperatures twice. It was just a phenomenal event, and certainly getting that information to, as Randy mentioned, not just Randy, but to the county so they could start rolling out cooling shelters. Just really important.
I think there's one part that we haven't really mentioned is that when we get into these events, all of us are on one conference call together. So Randy's got his folks, Kathy's got people, the experts in there. They're telling us exactly what they're seeing, what they're planning to doing, what information we have, and we're able to ask questions, share that information so that we have a good working relationship, working plan of what we're going to do, and start focusing on that. So it is a joint total effort that we're working with.
What's something that the public can do in any of these events? I mean, is the best thing for them to do is to jump on the Cal EMA website and kind of, you know, bounce around and look and see what I should be doing to kind of prepare, or just to be aware of certain, you know, threats or concerns in my area?
I think
all of our websites.
I think the answer is yes to all of them. I mean, pay attention to what the media is telling you. Look at Cal EMA's pages. I mean,
make sure you're checking our Twitter.
We use the National Weather Service information, so check there. Sacramento has Sacramento Ready. We have a Facebook page for Sacramento OES, a Twitter account. We're trying every way we can to get the message to the community to let them know. But the bottom line is the community has to be responsible for themselves. They've got to heed those warnings, that information. We can put it together. They've got to take the action to help take care of themselves first.
And we've tried to cull a lot of this information together on our webpage, www.calema.ca.gov, if we're able to show that to the folks. And you can find links to the state heat plan. You can find links to our archived shows that we've done in the past, our YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and other strategies that you can use to prepare your family for any number of disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, flooding in your home, and there's just so much information that is accessible to you free.
On that plan and prepare tab there, there's a lot of great information for the public there. You know, what you need to know, what to do in emergency, what you should have ready if you need to evacuate during a tsunami or a fire, for instance. Just a lot of great information on there that you guys have collected from all over.
Including local strategies that we receive. We
look at that, but also one of the things that people tend to think about when we start talking about plans is our family plan, and it's important to have a family plan, but about 70% of our time is not home. So what is your plan for when you're out vacationing? What are you going to do at work? What is your family plan to deal with those? So plan for all of the entire day period of what your normal life is, so you'd be ready for that disaster and not be surprised and say, I don't know what to do.
And here in California, you know, we often see disasters in our state. As you know, it's a wonderful place to live. It's beautiful, but we have a lot of mountainous areas, a lot of places that are very, you know, prone to fire dangers. Obviously, the coastal communities and the impacts of, you know, large storms and sea level and rise during storms and that kind of thing. So it's really important. These are not, you know, these are not things that happen to other people.
That's why it's always amusing is we all are sharing all this information, and we know several days, 4 and 5 days out, that there's storms coming. And it always amazes me when somebody says, I was caught by surprise by a storm. If they pay attention to what's on the media, what's in the newspaper, check the websites, all that information is available, so they should be able to prepare ahead of time.
Is it harder to get the word out now? Because, you know, it used to be in the past, everybody, you know, watched 1 or 2 TV stations, and, you know, you always watched that, and now there's...
Of course, I wasn't alive during that.
Well, I think nowadays we have multiple ways to get the message out to multiple generations. There's a lot of generations that still get most of their information from newspapers, not as much maybe, but certainly television. But then our younger generations, my children, will get it from Twitter and Facebook and even just their friends. Their friend hears that something's going on, and they'll text their other friend. One of the new things that's coming out, in fact, just this summer, is an advancement on public warning, and that's called Cmass, the Commercial Mobile Alerting System. And that's going to start putting alerts out onto cell phones. And it's going to be a major step forward, probably the biggest step forward since EAS in getting notification and alerts to the public.
Do you have to sign up for that, or how?
No, the way it's going to work is the signal will be beamed out from cell phone towers. It will not be a text message. It'll look somewhat like a text message, but it'll act more like a radio broadcast. In other words, the radio broadcast doesn't know who's receiving it, it's just beaming information. And so any cell phone that's within that cell phone broadcast will get the alert.
So you can do that kind of regionally then?
Right. Then the great thing about it is if you're not within the alert area when it's issued, but you drive into it later, your cell phone will pick up that signal and let you know that there's a significant problem in your area.
That is cool.
It's really great. It's going to come out to all cell phones. Not all cell phones are capable of receiving it right now, but it's felt that within the next 2 to 3 years, when people swap out their cell phones, that everybody will have it. So starting this summer, there's 3 types of messages. Presidential alerts, of which we've never had one, but we want to be prepared for one, certainly. Amber alerts, and then what are called wireless emergency alerts, which is where the weather falls in. But also if a county is able to put out a wildfire evacuation or shelter in place, it would fall under that category. And you would simply, it would pop up on your phone.
Then, and you know, I think people might be hearing this going, oh my God, they're going to be giving me message after message, click it and ticket, and you know, all kinds of stuff, you know, and it just becomes noise. But these are for, you know, top level emergencies we're talking about.
In fact, there's only 8 weather weather alerts that'll come out, and for our area, Northern California, blizzards, high wind, flash floods, and tornadoes. So I think most people would want to know about that. Yes.
The system was actually designed to augment the emergency alert system. So any message that goes out over this system would need to qualify as being an EAS message, which is defined as causing an immediate threat to property or life.
And is there a place that we can get some more information on that?
Well, on the Cal EMA website, there's a location. I think if anybody put down yeah, there's a great site on Cal EMA. Also FEMA. FEMA is actually the organizing agency. So they also have a lot of information. What you can also find is on your cell phone provider, they all have a section on their websites explaining what this is, explaining how it'll affect your phone, and you can go on and find out if your phone is capable now, and if not, there actually are some apps out there that you can update your phone.
Can you go on the Cal EMA website and just, you know, search? Is there like a search tool we should use, or can we show folks how to, can we pop that up and show folks how to find that information? Did I put you on the spot?
That's okay.
Actually, if you go onto the Cal EMA website, up in the search box up top, just type Cmass or type IPAWS, IPAWS.
Good.
answers a lot of questions. There's no charge for this. It's a joint partnership between FEMA and the cell phone providers. It's a public service. As Randy mentioned, it's not taking the place of EAS, it's supplementing it, taking advantage of all the new technologies. The fact that we're not at home a lot watching our television, but most of us carry cell phones. So the worst thing is we don't want people having it pop up on their phone this summer and getting upset about it. We want to make sure that they realize that this is really a positive.
Darn, they're warning me of an emergency again.
Well, I
don't see that happening too often.
Well, we also worry about one person getting it on their phone and the person sitting right next to them not getting it because their phone's not capable. So, yeah, certainly there's no cost. You don't have to type in your zip code. It's not like one of those where you have to sign in to get it. Wherever you happen to be, if you're on vacation, this is where it could be especially helpful. If you're in another part of the country and you don't even know where you are or what what town, what big town,
for me. I get
right?
Lost very easily.
And there's an alert, and is it important? What county are you in? Most people don't know what counties they are.
And I think it's important because what Kathy said, it is a warning to you. It's not going to have a lot of other. It's not going to be used to let you know that it's going to be windy, move your garbage can, whatever. It's going to be an important message that you need to pay attention to immediately.
And this is just, that's fascinating to me, and it's just one more tool that the state and locals and the feds can use to help people in an emergency. It's been just so interesting to me to hear all of the different tools and to hear about the coordination and you folks that are doing this every day. This kind of it's just your your daily routine. But as someone from the outside looking in, it's really fascinating to see just how much coordination and work goes into this and how smoothly things really do run in these emergencies, considering all the things that can go wrong. And it's awesome to me that we're doing something like this, that we're trying to get the message out to the public, that Cal EMA has this capability of doing these webcasts. And can we show that shot that shows
the wall camera? Are we able to show that?
Shows all the
folks. See all the wires on the ground.
And the team.
Yeah, the team. There's Jordan. Hey.
So I think that's an amazing service that the state gives to the people of California. And if folks if they have other questions that we haven't hit on during the show, they can still email, and you guys will get back to them, right?
That's right. We're going to be in touch with you all the time through our Twitter account @CalEMA or our Facebook fan page you can reach us on, and questions @calema.ca.gov for any specific questions you want to ask any of the guests that we had on today's show. And I want to thank Kathy, Roger, and Randy for coming on for the second segment, as well as the guys we had on earlier, our fire folks, and Deborah for co-hosting with me today.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Brett Alexander with Cal EMA and Deborah Hoffman with Cal EPA. And thank you for watching Cal EMA Live.
And stay safe.